Hey everyone, welcome back to yet another video. Today's video is the first installment of Pandas Zero to Hero. After posting my last two videos on my channel where I walked through my most recent data science project, I've come to realize that not many people have the experience and knowledge of using Pandas. So I thought in today's video and in videos in the coming weeks, I will teach you guys some simple and effective way of using Pandas so that A, you'll be able to incorporate Pandas in your own data analysis work, as well as B, next time I share my own notebook or project, it's easier for you guys to follow along and understand exactly what I'm doing. Alright, before we get started with this week's lesson, I thought I would tell you guys where you can find this particular notebook. So it will be on my GitHub under Pandas tutorial. As we progress through this video series, this is where I'll update the materials that we're going to use every single week. So I highly encourage you guys to hop onto my GitHub and have a look at the notebook yourself. Because, for example, in this week's notebook, I've included some introductory points on what Pandas is, what can you do with it, why you should learn it, etc. I do want to go through this last point where it says what I hope to do with this video series. So what I hope to sort of accomplish is I want to pass on what I've learned about Pandas so far. I'm still in the process of learning myself, but I hope that through this video series, I'll be able to encourage and inspire more people to use Pandas and incorporate in your own work, whether that is university related or if you're starting your own data science project. I hope that you'll gain confidence and the skills necessary to be able to carry out effective data analysis procedures. All right, let's get started with this week's content. So this week we're starting off very easy. So we're just learning how to read CSV file and creating your own data frame. So in order to have Pandas, we need to first import it. So we're just going to go ahead and import Pandas as PD. And in this next cell, I've included a link which will bring you to the Kaggle website. This is where you'll find the Titanic dataset. So all you have to do is just scroll down until you see a button which says download all. Just hit that button and remember where you have saved that file on your computer, because next what we need to do is we have to tell Pandas where to look for that particular file. So for me, in this case, I've saved my file under the C drive, under users, my name, documents, Kaggle, Titanic, and the name of the file is called train.csv. And I've assigned that to a variable called train. So read CSV is a function in Pandas which will allow you to read CSV format files. There's also other functions that you can use. Say for example, you want to load an Excel file. The way you do that is pd.readExcel. There's also functions for other sort of file formats. All you need to do is just Google it. But because for us it's in the CSV format, we need to use the pd.readCSV function. All right. Once we have loaded that data, let's look at the first 5 rows. So the way we do that is via .head. So this shows you the first 5 rows. .tail shows you the bottom 5 rows. All right. And the next useful function that you can use is .shape. So this tells you how many rows and columns exist in that particular data frame. So what if you want to create your own data frame? So we can also do that, and that is via a function called pd.dataframe. So in this example, I've made 4 columns and they are student ID, science, geography, and math. And each column has 3 rows. So those rows correspond to the test scores. This is what we call a numbers entry. We can also create a data frame which contains text. And the way we do that is very similar, except if we are putting a text, we have to also include inverted comma, which tells Pandas that this is a text. All right, next we're going to learn about index. So index is, if you notice this leftmost column where the text or the number is bolded, so it's in a darker color than the rest of the data frame. This is what we call an index. There's 2 ways we can create an index, and that is by assigning an existing column as our index, or we can assign an index right from the beginning when we're creating our data frame. So let's begin by looking at how we can set an existing column as our index. So the function we need to use here is set_index. So we're telling Pandas to set the student ID as our index. And once we run the cell, this is what we'll get. So we have the student ID as our leftmost column, and see how the numbers are bolded. And we have the 3 subjects and the corresponding test scores. Alternatively, we can also specify an index column when we're creating the data frame. So we will pass, the way we do that is via the index argument. And say, for example, for the survey data frame, so this one, say we want to assign the index right from the beginning. So the way we do that is, again, pd.dataframe. So at the end, we have to include an additional argument, which says index equals, and then you have to pass in a list and say that the first row is going to be product A, the second row is product B. And if you run that, this is what you get. You can also reset the index back to default. Say you want to get rid of the index. The way you do that is reset_index. Next of all, we're gonna move on to renaming columns. Say we want to rename the test test scores dataframe. Say you want to change the geography and science column to something else. So the way we do that is a function called rename, and we do columns. We're gonna rename the columns, and we're gonna change geography into physics. We're gonna change science into arts. And this is what we'll get. So notice that our science column from before has been changed into arts, and geography column has been changed into physics. So this is our new dataframe. All right. So what if we want to drop a particular column or a row? There's actually a couple ways you can do this, but in this example, and for the sake of keeping this video short, I'm just going to focus on the drop function. So if you want to drop the maths column, it's fairly easy. We just have to use the drop function and specify the columns, which is math. So notice again, we have to use the inverted comma because this is a text. So notice how the math column has been dropped. Say we want to drop rows. So rows, we have to specify the index. So say we want to drop this second row here, which has student ID 973. All we have to do is test_scores.drop and specify the index number that we're going to drop. And Pandas will go ahead and drop that row from the dataframe. All right, next we're going to look at how we can add columns and rows. The way we would add a new column is as so. So we have to first specify the name of our new column. And recall that our test scores have 3 rows. So we have to also include the 3 rows that would be under that new column. And if we run that cell, this is what we'll get. So we can see here that we have a new history column, and underneath that history column, we have 3 rows. What if we want to add, what if we want to keep the number of columns, but we want to add additional rows within that column? And the way we do that is we have to first create a new data frame. So this 2 rows is what we're going to add to our original data frame. And next what we're going to do is use a function called append. So the way you would use append is you have to first specify our original data frame, and then we're going to do .append, and within the parentheses we have to put in the new additional rows that we're going to append to our original data frame, which in this case for us is df. So if you run that cell, this is what we're going to get. These 2 rows were the rows from our original data frame, and this bottom 2 are the new ones that we just created. All right. So in this last section, we're going to look at series. So there are 2 core objects in Pandas. One is dataframe, which exists as a data table. And series is a sequence of numbers, or sometimes called a list. So an example of series is like this. So say we want to create a series with the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is what a series would look like. You can think of series as being a single column in the data frame. So similar to a data frame, we can assign an index to it. We can also assign an index to a series. We can use this similar logic and we can actually create a data frame using a series, except the difference is whereas from before when we were creating our data frame, we were going from column to column. So when we first, let's have a look at the beginning. All right, so here we have to first create our student ID, our first column called student ID, followed by science, followed by geography, followed by math. With series, it's a little bit different. We need to go by rows. So we have to tell Pandas this is going to be our first row, this is our second, this is our third. Once that is done, we have to name our columns. So I've went ahead and named my columns as customer ID, series, and sales. This is what my data frame looks like. So notice how this first series corresponds to the first row, this one's the second row, and this one's the last row. And I've also labeled my column, customer ID, series, and sales. That brings us to the end of this week's Pandas Zero to Hero. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe to my channel because in the coming weeks, I'll be releasing more advanced Pandas features and functions. And let me know in the comments section if there's any functions or particular areas of Pandas you want me to go through. I'll be more than happy to cover that in the coming weeks. So with that being said, take care and I'll see you in my next tutorial.
1, 2, 3, 4. Started off right, I can see it in your eyes, and I know that you want it. What's been on your mind? There's no reason we should hide. Tell me something I ain't heard before.